Hi, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple minutes before we start, so hang tight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Katie Rogers of Mindmatrix, and I'm here today with our Director of Sales for the MSP Advantage Program, Eric Weber. If you are not aware, Eric has been on the road most of the year, talking at a lot of different MSP-related conferences, events, lunch and learns, and you name it. So he's here today to embark on part one of a three-part series where we're going to discuss a lot about what he's learned in his travels and what he's garnered from the MSP market with his experience. So without further ado, I'm going to let Eric take this away. Eric?
Thank you, Katie, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eric Weber. As Katie mentioned, I oversee the MSP Advantage Program here for Mindmatrix. For those of you who don't know Mindmatrix, I'll just give you a very brief background on us. We've been in business since 1998, and we actually operate in two different business units. One, which is where the company started at, working with channel management, partner portal management, and direct sales for the enterprise level, which we work in any type of vertical with. And then our SMB unit, which focuses more in the managed service provider channel, which we started about 7 or 8 years ago, a couple before I came on board. But we do have multiple offices worldwide, roughly around 400 some clients, and we've enabled many, many more partners over that span. So just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I've been in sales since 2001, and I've worked in a few different industries, financial, wireless, education, and since early 2015, the MSP Channel. So over the last, almost 5 years now, I've been to many different events, and I've done probably close to 2,000 sales demos over that time. And that's given me a pretty good sample size to work with to see some of the main challenges, what works, what doesn't work. But I wanted to do this 3-part webinar series over the next couple of months to really kind of dig into some of those. There's only so much that you can do in a 30, 45-minute, 60-minute sales demo, and sometimes there's a lot of information given. So I wanted to keep this more on an educational level. But for today, we're going to talk about number one here, business development and lead generation. It's usually a sore spot for everybody because we all need leads. Without those, we can't close business and we can't grow the company. But on the next two, we'll dig more into marketing and sales infrastructure. So let's get started here with the first part today. I want to talk about you, the managed service provider. So when I've come across through my different sales demos here, and just from talking with people out and about, it's really kind of broken down into three different levels. All of my MSP clients fit into these three buckets. Some are a very small business where it's the owner, maybe just himself, or he may have a technician or two, maybe an admin person. But leads are very important to this guy, because he's doing everything. He's wearing multiple hats. Content is always a challenge, but just getting that basic growth foundation or even knowing what to do with it, it can be difficult. Then there's a small business. They may have a part-time marketing person, maybe a couple salespeople, a few techs, anywhere from 8 to 15 employees. But again, content usually is a challenge, but also combining that marketing and sales process together to get them more aligned. And then you have your more larger and well-rounded clients here. They have some marketing people, they have a sales team with directives to go after, and really just making sure that both are operating off of that same page and having enough content to send out is important. So when we dig into this, what we want to do is when we're looking at needing leads, it's the biggest challenge that I hear on the phone all the time. I need leads. I can't find them. Where do I go get them? There's so many different options out there. What do I do? Well, it's like basic problem solving. When you're staring at a mountain of a problem, you got to break it down bit by bit. And I know we're all in the tech game here. We like our technology. We like our toys. But when I start to solve a problem, I do it old school. I break out a pen and paper and I start writing ideas down. And then eventually I digitize it. So before you get into the different ways that we can begin to generate business and develop leads here, we need to know what we're targeting. So what kind of clients do we want to bring on board? First off, what does your ideal client look like? What size are they? How many endpoints would they have? What vertical are they in? So with that in mind, start with your current clients. Print a list of them out. Write them down on paper and then label them. How big are they? And what verticals are they in? With a couple things in mind, you want to think, which were the easiest to onboard? Which one of these provides us the best profit margins? Because we don't want to go against the grain and make more work for ourselves, but we want to bring clients on that are, easier to onboard, if there is such a thing, but also, too, the ones that make us the most money. After all, profit is the name of the game here. Once we have a couple verticals down, then delving into these different pieces here is a lot easier to tackle. So the first one here, having downloadable assets on your website. And when I talk about an asset, it could be anything from watching a video, an e-guide, a case study, a testimonial, or just something that provides some sort of relevant, educational, non-salesy material that the visitor to your website can take and read that shows you in more of a trusted advisor light. Most of the websites that I've looked on, many have a contact us page, which is important. You need that. Some have a sign up for our newsletter, which is also good, and you need that as well. But that tends to be where it stops. I would say of all the demos that I've done and the sites that I've looked at while I'm on the demo with the prospective client here, 1% to 2% maybe have more than that contact us or sign up for our newsletter. If anybody visits MSP Advantage Program.com, our website here. Aside from the sign up to get a demo form, I probably have roughly 40 different pieces on there that you can download. All of it non-salesy. Safety in numbers. Not only is it perception, but it shows, hey, we know what we're talking about. We're a trusted advisor, and you want to separate yourself from the pack there. This is going to help with that organic lead generation. Somebody's willing to give you their information sight unseen. That is a gold standard to me. Form fill outs. So we want to have multiple ones on there that we can track. Remember, they only need to do it once. The next piece would be your social network. When I joined Mindmatrix, I had maybe a little over 100 contacts. Since then, I now am pushing maybe over 1,700, somewhere in and around there. Anytime I meet somebody and I get their business card, I want to connect with them on LinkedIn. Or if I've done a demo with them, I want to connect with them on LinkedIn. Or if I've done a lunch and learn or whatever it might be, I want to connect with these people. Because once they connect with you, they're saying, yeah, sure. Hey, send me information. I connected with you for a reason. They're always free to decline the invitation if they don't want it or unsubscribe at a later date. But there is a lot of relevance in social media these days. It shows what your company does in a non-salesy way. It lets the prospective client know that you're with the times. Social is very big. And it's a good way for brand awareness and just generally getting in front of eyeballs. Here at the company, we all give our LinkedIn credentials to the company here. That way, any material that we feed through it gets pushed out through all of the employees' networks as well here too. It's brand awareness. It's staying in front of folks, letting them know what's going on, how we're relevant. But we also want to make sure that we're tying this information back to either our blog or our website, where again, there's more information. Next piece would be networking. There's a couple of ways that you can do this as well. The most common would be a Chamber of Commerce or Business Networking Intelligence. Now, depending on where you're at in the country, I've heard both good and bad for both of them. Some people are like the Chamber is a complete waste of time. I've heard other ones where it's fantastic and they're very involved with it. Same with BNI. But the importance of that is being seen, especially within the community. Now, will you generally get a lot of leads out of this? Maybe fewer and far between. But again, it's that top of mind, being seen, and on a consistent basis. This is a great way. A lot of clients have grown through word of mouth and referral. It's a great way to get in on that. The next one, trade shows and local organizations. This is probably my favorite one right here, just because I do go out on the road quite a bit. Not as many as some, not as few as others. But form fill outs from the downloadable assets and trade shows, those are my bread and butter. That's where I get most of my clientele from. Now, once you've determined the type of client that you want to go after, let's say, for example, we're targeting dental offices, attorneys, and let's just stick with those two. We want to start to Google and see what's in and around your city. A lot of these professional people belong to professional organizations, and they gather, somewhat periodically. Now, maybe there's a sponsorship opportunity, maybe there's not. But when we were building out the MSP Advantage Program, before I came on board, it wasn't exactly what you see, what it is today. It certainly didn't have all the pieces to it, but it was a bit of a mixed bag of everything. What really propelled our push into the MSP channel was going to an MSP show. We thought, hey, this might be a good place to generate leads. But before we shelled out a lot of money and decided to sponsor it, we just went as an attendee. We walked the show. We talked to the people there. We met other folks and asked them what they thought of the show. Did they get any type of a benefit out of it there? And then once we did, we realized, yes, this makes sense to sponsor. So we did. And then we kept sponsoring more shows. Instead of going out to many small events and trying to hunt a few at a time, go to one place where there are many. But then the key is to keep doing it on a regular basis. With all of the different ways for lead generation here, consistency is truly the key. Because at the end of the day, you want to be a known quantity within that area and meeting people. I left list purchasing as the last one here because it's probably the lowest of the rung. So you don't just want to go to Hoover's or a Zoom Info, buy a list of leads, dump them in, just start sending a bunch of emails. It's a great way to wind up in spam. But a list provider does have its benefits. The first one being is you want to see how big of the pie that you're working with is. For example, if you're going after and you've decided on, hey, dentists and attorneys, they're going to be my target clients that I'm going after. Well, you want to get some criteria to search first. What's the radius? What's my territory that I want to operate within? Let's say 60 miles from where you're sitting. Next, what's the big size of the companies that I want to get in? Let's maybe search 5 to 100 endpoints. Plug in the 2 different verticals, dental offices, attorneys, and then next, the titles of the people that you would want to talk to in those firms, whether it be CEO, sole proprietor, managing partner, whatever type of decision maker that you generally have your conversations with. But when you plug those 4 criteria of distance, vertical, size, and title, it's going to come back with a number. Now, if you plug all those in and it comes back with 5 million, then yeah, maybe the piece of the pie is too big and you might need to scale that down a bit. But if you enter that criteria in and it only comes back with 35, then you may need to expand upon it. This way, at least hey, here's the size of the entire pie that I want to target and go after. And it helps working with those other 4 items of trade shows, chamber, exporting your social networks, makes that a little more manageable because now you know where to start looking in which direction. Rather than just standing out there thinking, man, I need leads, where do I get them? Basic problem solving. You work at one and you continue to work your way down the list until you have something to go after then. These are the main ways that I generate leads here for the company. Now, you'll notice I have left off a couple of different pieces here, such as pay-per-click, AdWords, SEO, and I'll talk about more of those on our next webinar here. But the reason I left those off was the different ways that you can generate leads that are on the screen right now, you can control those, which means you control the inflow of leads that are going to go into your pipeline, meaning you can be picky about who you want to let in. The other ways, there's no telling what's going to find its way to your site. Even if you have more of a specific criteria, you don't know what's going to come through the door. This helps you control and get the type of client that you want to get that's going to fit your business. So what exactly does good look like as far as having good business development and lead generation? Well, first is having multiple sources. Just like investing, they tell you to diversify. Why? Because it helps you reduce risk. If one sector goes down and that's all you're in, then you're not completely sunk. Lead generation is no different. If you only go to trade shows and then trade shows all of a sudden become terrible, it sinks your whole pipeline. So it's always good to have maybe 3 or 4 different types of lead generation within there. Now, you can always be more heavy in one and then weight it as you go, but you want to reduce your risk. After all, it's your time that you're going out and putting out there. You want to make the most of that. Connecting with them. Kind of going back to LinkedIn on the previous page here. Whether somebody fills out a form on your website, you meet them at a trade show, a networking event of any type of sorts, anytime somebody gives you a business card, you should connect on LinkedIn with them that day. When I first started out, and actually I still do this today, at 6 p.m. every day, I have a notation that says LinkedIn connections. And if I've demoed somebody that day, or if I've come back from a show the day before and I have a stack of cards, 6 p.m. every day, I'm sending out LinkedIn invites. But you always want to connect with these people. Consistency is probably the most important of them all. Whatever you do, whether it's trade shows, whether it's going to different events, you want to be consistent with what you do. And you don't have to do it all the time. My first year here, I went to 3 events. And then the next year, we expanded upon that. And the year after, even more, and the year after, and it just continues to grow. When we find something that works, we do more of it, and we do it in a consistent manner. Even webinars or lunch and learns. You can do different one-offs to test the waters. Sometimes maybe it takes 2. But once you have something that's working for you, you want to do it on a regular basis. Again, because you want to be that known quantity. Automation. This kind of flows into the next webinar here, more with marketing. But whenever we're developing business and we're generating leads, these people need a home. It's going to create tons of data for you, and you need to organize that data, but you also need to stay in front of that on a regular and consistent basis. Otherwise, you're like a lot of people I talk to, and they have a drawer full of business cards. They've taken the time and the effort to exchange cards with somebody, meet and talk, and then that's about all the further it went. If they didn't want you to have their information, they wouldn't have given you their card. So let's stay in front of them with relevant information. And then lastly, asset management. When we meet somebody, how do we follow up with them? Again, we can connect on LinkedIn, say it was great. If we've been to a show and we came back with multiple leads, we want to follow up with these guys. Let them know, hey, it was great to meet you. I'd love to connect with you sometime in the next few weeks to see if we can help. And if there's not a glaring need for them at the time, at least you can stay in front of them on a regular basis with relevant information. Out of sight is usually out of mind. That's why we always want to stay on top of what we're doing. Content and consistency is the key to any successful marketing, business development, and lead generation. Always be in front with the relevance. So in the grand scheme of things, kind of going back to the 3-part webinar series on business development and lead generation, marketing and infrastructure, sales and infrastructure, I wanted to show you where this fits in. So right over here on the left, this will be the front piece. Any data that we've created out of there, first name, last name, phone number, email address, from a business card with the various ways that we're doing business development and lead generation, that is basically the wood for you to put on the fire to stay in front of them. I know some of you have probably seen this bubble graphic here before. I do like to use it a lot just because it does show that 20,000 foot view, kind of keeps things in perspective. But that first part there is the most important part, because if that's crummy, everything else is going to be crummy right along to go with it. It sets the stage for it all. So what are we going to take away from this? Basically, in conclusion here, hey, generating leads in business development, it's not easy. It can be challenging at times. Especially if you're the very small business or even a small business without somebody to actually go hunting, you got to work it at scale. Maybe you don't do as much of it to start, or you do what you can. Maybe you go to 1 event per quarter just to test the waters. Secondly, you got to know the audience. You got to really know, who are we trying to go after here? What's our target? Again, if it's inbound and it fits your criteria, and their money's green, absolutely take the business. But when you're putting time and effort in to go out there and hunt, you want to make sure that you're getting what you want. Basically, the key places, networking events, business groups, webinars, are all fantastic for business development. But make sure that you diversify the different ways that you're going to find leads. And then importantly, staying in front of them. Content and consistency. multiple sources, relevant information, tracking it all, reaching out to them properly, and having that guidance. So I want to turn it over here to Katie now. This concludes today's webinar for myself. I want to see if she has any questions that may have come in.
Yeah, hi again, everybody. So there are a couple questions, but for the sake of time, we're not going to get to all of them. So if we do not get to yours today, we will respond to you, or Eric will reach out to you directly after this is over. But the one question regarding events, somebody asked, how often should I go to industry-related events if I have a limited marketing budget?
Sure, and that's a good question. So the first thing I would do would be to Google well, again, once you decide on your target market and what you're going after, I would start with a simple Google search to see what is in and around your area. Once you find a couple of events that you think might make sense, give them a call first. See, hey, is there a charge to get in here? You know, whether I'm part of the group or not, see if a client is, and maybe that they can bring you so that you can simply walk the show first. That way there's no out-of-pocket expense for you except for your time. It allows you to do a little bit of recon, see if it's worth coming back. Maybe it's something that you don't even need to sponsor that. You know, you can just go with a client of yours. You know, he can introduce you to people while you're there, and also it'd be a great way to let folks know, hey, you're going to be doing a webinar as well too. You know, October is Cybersecurity Month, which is going to be coming up. It's a great way to let them know, hey. But also too, while you're at these shows, working with particular verticals, like say if attorneys are a vertical that you work with here, and then you're speaking to other attorneys, it's great to let them know there, hey, this is how I've helped some other attorneys that I work with. You know, I specialize in legal people. Here's a lot of their common challenges. Maybe we should talk more at another time. But simply, yeah, I would scout them out first. You know, and obviously when time allows, at least shoot for one per quarter, test the waters. You know, in these earlier stages, it can tend to be some trial and error.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like the option of finding a client who's going to be attending too, to see if you go with them. That was a good response there, Eric. One more question. How many leads should I be generating per month?
That's a tough one. So there's all kinds of answers for that one. And again, this is more of a trial and error right here. I have come back from shows where I have had a marketing list of 200 and I got very little out of it. I've had some where I've come back with a list of maybe 60 or 70 and it's been fantastic. So this is where quality versus quantity comes into play. The more quality event that you're at, the less you're going to need. You know, especially if you're at an event and you're doing a workshop of sorts, or you have engagement or some one-on-one time. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to close everybody right from it, but at least you can stay in front of them with relevant content moving forward. The reason I saved the list purchasing from the database provider was last is that I would rather take 100 contacts from an event that I've been at versus a list of 5,000 that are just cold from a Hoover's or Zoom info. Again, the only way to know this is to start going out there, meeting people, putting them in, but then you want to track the time from start to conversion, which is called that lead to revenue journey. This way you can work your way back on, hey, I have one client, you know, it took me 3 times to meet with him. You know, that came out of 10 demos that I did, which spawned from 100 leads. Once you can start working this back, then you can determine, hey, here's how many clients that we want to get. Here's a roundabout number of leads that I need to generate. Therefore, that will be required X amount of events or organizational meetings that I might need to go to. But again, that comes back to a try and error thing, but
Yep.
we must
Tracking is important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, guys. That's all the time we have today. I do see another question in here, but I'm about to answer it. Yes, we will be sharing the live recording with you here in probably the next 24 hours. I really appreciate all of you coming out today. Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing your insight with us, and we hope you guys have a great rest of the week.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and look forward to the next webinar. Have a great day, everybody.